My mother-in-law's anniversary was approaching, and she started fussing about organizing her celebration, wanting to do everything herself, without outside help. She essentially announced to the children that she would celebrate her 60th birthday at the dacha and expected them to visit. My daughter-in-law was surprised. She and her husband had suggested going to a cafe. A cafe was a perfect place to celebrate such an occasion. But my mother-in-law was stubborn. "No, I want to go to the dacha, in the fresh air. It's summer, after all. The guests will be happy. I can run, jump, or dance." She said her friends were the kind who really let their hearts go wild. What if the cafe got trashed, and who would pay? For the same reason, she refused to celebrate at the apartment. "There's no room for everyone there," the future birthday girl noted discontentedly. Valentina Fedorovna didn't mind losing the dacha. They definitely wouldn't trash the house. They'd be celebrating outside, after all, and there you could do whatever you wanted. The daughter-in-law understood why her mother-in-law didn't mind losing the dacha. This property was in the best traditions of the Soviet era. That very time stood there, untouched, with the owner always busy with her own affairs. As if she were saving this location for the film industry. Suddenly, someone would decide to shoot a movie there. Otherwise, the conditions there are very modest for a modern city dweller. You can spend the day, but you don't even want to stay overnight. Although the nature is truly beautiful. However, the toilet is outside, and the water is in the well, no amenities. And in the entire time this dacha was owned, no one has done anything, not even a wash basin was hung. There is a basin and a few buckets nearby. The house has old furniture that was given away 30 years ago someone. And before that, this furniture had been sitting there for just as long. You can imagine its condition. And the bed linen my mother-in-law brought there was old, so washed out that it was see-through. Rita knew all about it, because it happened. Once, her mother-in-law persuaded her and her husband to spend the night there so she could help with the potatoes in the morning. This was before their daughter was born. Well, nothing has changed since then, of course. The only thing is that my mother-in-law stopped planting potatoes. It's hard for her, no one helps, and it's hard on her own. My son and daughter-in-law also wanted to relax, and spending weekends at the dacha is no relaxation. Especially since at first my mother-in-law tried to shift the responsibility of the garden onto them, planting everything with vegetables and tending to them. And when there was no watering and weeding, you could actually relax. It's understandable why neither my son nor my daughter-in-law liked going to the dacha. Nikita wasn't so stressed out. He didn't cut the grass. He tugged, but also preferred a different vacation. But Rita said unequivocally that she would not go there. But it's her birthday, her husband persuaded her. He said that this time no one would force her to work. The daughter-in-law was not lazy, but it was summer, the heat, overtime every day. Everyone wants to get away on vacation in the summer, and other colleagues have to work more. Rita was not angry, she was the same. A month ago, she also went to the sea with her family, and now she works for two. And on the weekends she wants to relax. Which the mother-in-law does not understand. Be that as it may, and no matter how much Rita did not like spending time at the dacha, she agreed. The mother-in-law, however, did not agree to celebrate her anniversary in the city. The daughter-in-law had to give in. After all, the wishes of the birthday girl had to be taken into account. And there was no point in arguing with Valentina Fyodorovna, a stubborn woman. The daughter-in-law asks her, "Why can't we go in the city?" And she'll get her way. Only at the dacha can guests properly stroll around, like some kind of savages. And do you have a daughter? She'll be happier in the fresh air too, the mother-in-law argued. The child will run around on the grass, no one will bother her. And Rita and Nikita's daughter is 4 years old. By this time, she's already been to a cafe and a restaurant. She likes everything there just fine. And besides, she's not a hyperactive child. She wouldn't have smashed anything. But the grandmother insisted that the girl needed to go to the dacha. So, both the mother-in-law and her husband convinced Rita to go to the dacha. Before that, Nikita's mother had spent half a day shopping for the holiday. And the next day, he first drove the birthday girl and her friends with all this mountain of groceries to the dacha, and then returned for his wife and child. When the daughter-in-law arrived, she was stunned. There was a huge table outside, and it was quite generously laid. There was plenty of food, salads, hot appetizers, meat, poultry, drinks of various strengths and colors. Valentina Fyodorovna hadn't skimped on the treats. She proudly declared that she'd spent the whole night cutting and preparing everything herself, without outside help. Now she was running around the table and reading that she was exhausted. If she had stayed in the city, it would have been easier, thought Rita, looking at all this fuss. Her mother-in-law had invited about 30 people to the celebration. Family, friends, colleagues she hadn't seen in 10 years, relatives, and the children and grandchildren of these relatives. She was worried about not having enough food, even though the good old, Soviet-era refrigerator was filled to the brim with containers and bottles. It was unlikely that anyone would leave the anniversary hungry. The birthday girl had done a wonderful job, and everyone praised the food and continued to admire it. And she presented herself from every angle. For each dish, she described how she heroically discovered its secret recipe and then honed it to perfection. How she chose the sausage and cheese not randomly, but based on someone's recommendations. And everything in that vein. It was impossible not to notice what a good hostess she was. The entire table was her doing. The girls only helped set the table, but she'd done everything herself last night. And the girls were the same 60-year-old women who chattered cheerfully nearby, praising their friend. And the way the birthday girl recounted her contributions to the family was envy-inducing. The guests kept glancing at their daughter-in-law, expecting her to sing a chord. But Rita only modestly wished her a long, happy, and healthy life. And where was the gratitude for all her mother-in-law does for her? Quote, "She sent the children to the seaside," Valentina Fyodorovna boasted. "At least we discovered Turkey for ourselves, otherwise we got foreign passports and they just lay around unused." Quote, she presented it to the guests as if she had sent her son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter to the Turkish coast at her own expense, and all she did was send them to a friend of hers who worked in a travel agency. She claimed it was cheaper, but in fact, the trips were more expensive than elsewhere. It was awkward to refuse her, especially because she was familiar. But, so as not to offend her mother-in-law, they said that yes, it was inexpensive, but they didn't belittle her in front of the guests. Let her brag. But Valentina Fyodorovna got carried away, and began telling them that it was only thanks to her that her granddaughter was growing up so smart. "I'm taking care of Zhenechka." "How come?" She patted her granddaughter on the head. "I see her every day." "Yes, my dear," she asked her granddaughter. And Zhenechka nodded, and her dad almost choked on his juice. He looked at his wife warily. Well, what will he say, Rita? She's not going to clarify in front of everyone exactly how her grandmother spends time with their child. It's not even worth mentioning that she helps. But she does see her regularly. Her husband video calls her every evening, and her granddaughter waves goodbye. That's all Zhenechka cares about, because nothing else interesting happens to her grandmother. Valentina Fyodorovna has no time for her granddaughter. She has her own worries, social clubs with her friends, meetings, cultural events, or hospital visits to keep track of illnesses. So, when she announced to the guests her help with her granddaughter, she probably had this waving in mind. And the ones who really helped with the child were her daughter-in-law's parents. They bought her things, took her to amusement parks. Rita's mother took her granddaughter to dance classes, and Nikita's mother only promised to help later. But now Valentina Fyodorovna was telling everyone what a great girl she was. And when the ideas for the finale ran out, and the guests were already showing little interest in the food, the birthday girl announced that they would now have tea. Before this, she had quietly begun to clear the dirty plates from the table, but she would get distracted by another story, and someone else would snatch the plates. Eventually, there was little left on the table, and it was time to set the cake. Rita, you're the youngest here. Go wash the dishes in the basin, and I'll make the tea, the mother-in-law commanded. Sorry, but I won't wash, the daughter-in-law suddenly blurted out. I came to visit, not to wash dishes, she declared. The mother-in-law's jaw dropped for a second, and then she quickly began asking the guests, which tea would you like? She also has coffee, quote. And indeed, this distracted the crowd from the recent misunderstanding, and everyone perked up again. A couple of minutes later, the birthday girl went to make tea and wash the dishes. One of her friends looked at Rita reproachfully and hurried to help the unfortunate heroine of the occasion. Although Valentina Fyodorovna didn't show any offense, Rita could practically feel her mother-in-law's hatred in her bones. Occasionally, she would glare at her, as if she were sending lightning bolts. But the young woman pretended nothing was happening. Even her husband said nothing. After all, they had agreed to come for a rest, and a basin was too much. At least Nikita knew better than to upset his wife. She always answers directly, and the dishes, that's a sore subject. Rita gets her nails done, and she doesn't even bother with the dishes at home. We bought a dishwasher and forgot about this problem. And it seemed that everyone had forgotten about it now. But the birthday girl held a grudge. She wasn't going to forgive such an insult. Although she was cheerful and carefree in front of the guests, as soon as everyone left, she gave in to her emotions. The son and his family stayed until the last, as they were supposed to take his mother home. But she didn't immediately follow them into the car, but started a showdown. She started yelling at her daughter-in-law for ruining her holiday, inflicting a mortal insult, disgracing her in front of the guests. She made her mess around with the slop on such a special occasion, she flared her nostrils with anger. What, did I have to mess around with the slop? The daughter-in-law objected. Both women considered themselves unworthy of it. But, of course, the birthday girl shouldn't have been washing the dishes. Perhaps the daughter-in-law would have agreed. But Valentina Fyodorovna was to blame for this. She'd been offered a place to celebrate her anniversary at a cafe. Rita reminded her of this, saying she'd made her own choice and shouldn't blame anyone else. An argument broke out between the women, and in a fit of anger, the mother-in-law threw a slipper at her daughter-in-law. It hit her right in the face. Rita was stunned, blinking, and looking at her mother-in-law as if she were crazy. Then Rita's husband lost his temper. He tried to intervene earlier, to stop the argument, but his mother had asked him to keep quiet. It wasn't his business. The women would sort things out among themselves. But he wasn't comfortable with such squabbles. It would escalate into a fistfight. Rita was about to show her temper, and she'd put up with it anyway, not wanting to ruin the birthday girl's mood, but his mother had started it herself. Initially, there was a different agreement. When they told her that the dacha party had a major downside, that they'd have to clean up everything, she said it was okay, she'd thought of everything, and there wouldn't be any problems with cleaning. That's why the daughter-in-law didn't want to help. After all, they were offering a different solution. Her conscience was clear. Frankly, she doesn't respect people who say one thing and do another. The mother-in-law knew she'd have to wash the dishes, but she said she wouldn't have to do anything. So next time, she wouldn't try to be clever. In the end, the son told his mother everything, and he and his wife left. Valentina Fyodorovna was offended. They suggested she calm down and go home, but she kept her head up. Rita made a fool of me, let her apologize. Well, goodbye. They carry water for the offended, but they don't give a ride home. The mother-in-law didn't even care about her granddaughter. She staged such a circus in front of her. The children don't know how the birthday girl got home. Their phones were disconnected to prevent further arguments. She wouldn't calm down until she admitted she was right. Nikita only spoke to his mother a few days later. She called and asked for a ride somewhere. He had a serious talk, explaining to his mother that she was wrong, but she continued to criticize her daughter-in-law. Finally, the son said he was cutting off her financial support. Since his mother wouldn't admit she was behaving badly, she should live off her own money until she realized she was wrong. Luckily, she received a pension. His mother-in-law was angry that the business had closed, but her pride wouldn't allow her to admit her guilt. She would have agreed to celebrate her anniversary at a cafe. There wouldn't have been such problems. They even offered to pay for it, but she complained that they had become completely spoiled. They had nowhere to spend their money. Fine, they listened. Now they'll save money on her. Thank you for listening to the story to the end. Please support the channel with a like. It won't be difficult for you, but it means a lot to me. Until next time.